Welcome to another episode of The Thin Line. Today we have got Andreas Dorn.
Yes.
And Andreas is an NLP coach and trainer.
Thank you for having me, Aru. Thank you very much for being here.
So my first question is that how did you get introduced to NLP in the first place?
How deep do you want to go? Let's talk about that one. I can talk about this for a long time. Now, I personally was always in change, loved change from childhood onwards, helping people to make the changes, even as a judo trainer, working with little children to teach them to make changes to their
judo
Yeah, I was training kids in judo as well. I'm a brown belt actually. Never went to the black belt. Came to Malaysia by accident in 1993, working with the United Nations for 2 years. Then moved over because every Matsali, every foreigner wants to stay in Asia or in Malaysia. The food is so beautiful, the people are wonderful. So by then I worked in Indonesia until it collapsed in 98. My wife and I, Najwa and I, we ran away to Singapore, came back to Malaysia in the year 2000. Worked in an HR consulting company as a backup into their market research, helping consultants getting understanding of potential clients. That was all the time before Google, before Facebook, before AI, of course, year 2000. So when a consultant came up and said like, hey, I want to meet company ABC, what do you know about that company? It was my job to research. And I was pretty good at it, I have to say, because I was looking first after Malaysia, then Southeast Asia, then Asia, and later on working with the global headquarters. It was a consulting company, HR consulting. And consultants flew in from overseas, and it was talent management, performance management, change management. And I loved what they were doing. And I was sitting in the back and supported them. And one day, like many viewers, many listeners most likely can relate to this, I wanted more. I wanted to be participating in that big game, change management. So I went to my boss and he said to me, Andreas, I asked him basically, how can I be part of these consulting projects? Now, he told me, Andreas, you're really good in what you're doing right now. Stay where you are in the backup research. We include you, integrate you every now and then in these big projects, which they did, I have to admit. But I went back and I thought like, I want more, still in my mind. And I was like, what can I do? And then by chance, a friend of ours was inviting me and Najwa to a quick seminar, to a 2-day training seminar called Extraordinary Performance with NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I had no idea what it was, but I went there and I really enjoyed that 2 days. And I realized, because many times in the HR consulting companies, when we interviewed people as well, they were telling us it's hard to change behaviors. I always believed in the possibility of changing behaviors quickly. Now, in that 2 days training seminar, I realized it's really possible to make changes for a person if they are willing to, inside their mind, in that experience, in that their way of how they approach certain things. And I thought, I won that. So I talked to that trainer in the end of the training, and he outlined the plan, the pathway in NLP for me to become a practitioner first, and master practitioner, then trainer, and my life changed. From that point onwards, I realized that's what I want. I want to learn NLP. I want to really work with people to help them make the changes they want to have in their life. And I never looked back. And in 2005, 2006, I then became a trainer of NLP, one of the pioneers in Malaysia. And from that point onwards, never looked back, always moved forward, studying anything about the mind, communication, helping people make the changes to their behaviors, beliefs and values, even identity, to help them make the changes.
Wonderful.
Long story, I can tell more.
So as you made these changes and you saw this potential in NLP, what was the changes that you personally were going through? How did this whole change about looking at your work, at your career, also change you from inside?
There was another major event that was throwing me into the market of becoming a real trainer or opening my own company, because I lost my job way back in 2005 then. And I had to make a decision of what do I do next. And as a foreigner living here in Malaysia, I had only the possibility either to go back or to open my own company. And I didn't want to go back. I was married, had a family, a child to raise, loved the country. Yeah. So we decided then I want to become an NLP trainer. Now then I realized as well, I've never been training before. I mean, I worked in the company before. I did some little training, but I never had my own company. I never run a big project. So I thought, like, what can I do? And then again, by chance, another company picked me up first, and they gave me the responsibility to run a global project.
Okay.
In that global project, then I learned how to run projects, managing clients overseas. And that was another 15 months along that line. And then I realized I got enough. Now I am ready to become a trainer. And I jumped into the boat of becoming a trainer. I was very, very uncertain because, hey, I was always protected in the environment. And now to do things by myself. In the company I worked with, I had great support. Yeah, my first student in NLP to join my NLP practitioner training was actually somebody from that company who said, like, I want to learn with you. Where can I sign up? And that gave me kind of the inner evidence, the inner idea, the inner clarity, the right word, the inner clarity. It's possible. I can make it happen. And then things just flew.
Yeah. So a lot of us, when we see uncertainty, we sometimes freeze. Sometimes it relates back to our lack of confidence. And that's where we don't take that step. That's where we kind of wait for the right moment. Yeah. Or we say that when everything feels perfect, then I'm going to jump into it. Not now. I'm not ready yet. Yep. So how did you, my question is that did this thought come to your mind at that point of time that you're not ready yet? You mentioned that you were thinking that. But was there certain moments which made you take that leap of faith? Was there something which, if you would have known at that point of time, you wouldn't have taken that leap of faith?
Well, that's a question.
Sometimes.
That's an awesome question. First of all, we are never certain. Yeah. There is nothing like 100% certainty, nothing like 100% perfection. Yeah. It is just about understanding how we as individuals evaluate what's going on. So get the clarity within ourselves. NLP helps a lot in there because it helps us to understand, okay, here's a certain situation. The question could be, can I become a trainer? Can I attract people into my training? Can I find clients overall? But this is always looking at the outside world. But it's about me, inside of me, getting clear first of what do I want? How can I make it happen? What are the resources inside of me already that can help me to make that steps? Yeah, okay. Uncertain steps. But as I move on, then sooner or later, I gain a certain clarity. Yeah. So it's not about jumping in, not being prepared, but about realizing what do I need to do inside of me first to get some sort of preparedness and then test it out one step after the next. What I didn't realize, and we talked about it earlier, what I didn't realize at that point of time, and I learned it only a year or 2 years later, I became a trainer. First of all, pioneer of NLP. Nobody knew NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. What the heck is that? People looked at me like, and I struggled initially to explain it as well, of course. Secondly, more shockingly, I didn't realize there were 40,000 trainers in Malaysia.
At that point of time. But not doing NLP, other training programs.
All kind of different trainings overall, okay?
So they were competing in the same space.
They were in the training industry. Yeah. And I had no idea. Initially, I was a little bit naive. Sometimes it's good to not know. It's good to not know, to know that you don't know. Because I thought like maybe you got 100 trainers or 200 trainers, maybe even lesser, maybe 50 trainers. Yeah. Until one day I talked to somebody else, a more senior trainer, a good friend of mine. And he said like, Andreas, there are 40,000 trainers in Malaysia. And I was like, I got stuck. Yeah. I was shocked. And I thought like, if I would have known that number while I was still working in that organization, which gave me certainty, I might have not taken that step. Yeah. But I realized I wanted to take that step. So sometimes when we have too much evidence, too many data, we don't move.
Yeah.
data is good, information is good. We don't want to be blindfolded and running into certain things that might cause more chaos or threaten ourselves. It's about ecology and taking care of ourselves and our family ultimately. Yeah. But if I would have known that data, I don't know if I would have moved.
Yeah, and in fact, if you would have known that data at that point of time, whether it was 40,000 or 60,000, it would have... And still you would have taken the step, you would still be in the same, what you are doing right now. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
So the question is, are we becoming more and more data-driven decision makers, or are we in a way not believing our gut, not taking the step that we can actually take to change our lives? Do you see that often? Do you see that?
I'm a pretty data-driven person. I was always in market research, statistics. You have to do that. But I also like to work with people. There was a bit of a conflict inside of me as well when I worked. Now, let me reframe that question a little bit. In my family, I'm from Germany, there was never been an entrepreneur, always worked as employees. And running my own company, I talked to my mom about it, and she, of course, coming from her own worldview, said like, stay in the organization, work hard, get to retirement, and then you might do. These were old beliefs installed inside of us. All of us have beliefs inside of us that hold us maybe back. And it's about becoming aware of it. And as I talked to my mom, I realized, hey, I got that old belief in my mind. The fear, like a belief, is oftentimes associated with emotion, always associated with emotions, positive or negative. Now, the fear of opening up a company because, hey, it's a great uncertainty and what will happen if it doesn't go well ultimately, restricted me initially. So for me, I had to become aware of my emotional state, my own inner stuff, and realize what will happen, asking myself questions, bringing the inner world to kind of like into the conscious mind. What will happen if I don't open a company? Will I find a new job? Who's going to hire me? Again, it's not easy as a foreigner to always find a job in Malaysia. So I thought and what happens in the future? Like, let's say I'm finding another job and I would work another 5 years or 10 years or whatever. And suddenly the company would have said again, Andreas, no more place for you. What then? I would be much older. So I had this ping pong in my head. What do I do? And I played it out and I realized, hey, I want to do that step forward. It's about inner clarity. It's about inner structure of your thoughts. What do you do in your mind and reflecting, deeply reflecting of what's going on. And I've got a great partner, of course, where we could ping pong ideas around it to ultimately make it happen. And we did. And I'm very happy about this ultimately.
I wonder whether that during that ping pong time when you're always asking questions and there are pros and cons and pros and cons and you're finding it difficult to decide on something. Was there a person or an event or a book or something which helped you to cross over?
Crossover is a heavy word.
Make a decision for that, man.
To make the decision. Well, one was my wife, Najwa. That she was always supportive, basically. I had a very supportive back up here in Malaysia with her family, with friends of mine who supported me as well. They're like, just go for it, do it. Then, of course, while I was still working in the organization that I just mentioned, somebody came to me and said, like, I want to sign up for your course. That was an evidence inside of me, a relief. Wow, there is something going on. Another colleague of mine took my brochure that we created and said, like, can I sign the brochure? It might be valuable in the future when you become famous, Andreas. So I signed it. So I got positive feedback. Now, I'm the person who's likes to listen to feedback as well. And it can get influenced as well. People get influenced by naysayers. Will it work? What happens if? The challenges to do. You've never done it before. All of that. How can we get influenced by that? How does it influence our own inner belief? So it's also about what are the data that I take from the outside world and what do I do inside of me? To understand then, hey, what do I need to do within myself to create that own inner certainty inside of me? The pictures I hold in my mind, the self-talk. It sounded easy. It was endless nights. basically. Long nights, overall thinking it through, playing things out in my head, but then making it happen. And then realizing it works. It was like easy little steps to do, like finding a space to run our own training, putting advertisements in the newspaper. At that point of time, we had advertisements in the newspaper. Okay. Yes, basically. Okay. And people actually called us up, and we invited them over to our office, and we had a good conversation. We put naive but interesting. Yeah. We went to newspaper distributors on the road.
Put those pamphlets.
Standing on the side of the road. Oh, okay. And we asked them, can you put flyers, our flyers, into those newspapers? And they were doing it. Yeah. Cost us a little bit of money, but they were distributing it. And suddenly somebody called and said like, hey, I got your flyer. And we thought like, wow, it works, hooray. And that person signed up. It was our first participant that we didn't know before.
Okay.
The first unknown person. Yeah. The rest of us, the earlier ones were people that we knew. Yeah. And then we knew it flew. And then we ran the first training. It was a small crowd of 6 people.
Okay.
Of 2 people. There was 2 people that we did not know. There was another person coming in and 4 people we were aware of. Yeah. And it worked ultimately. And then we kept running it and it worked and more people came. And today, I'm happy with what we have achieved. 20 years.
I think those small actions that you kept on taking, that kept things moving, that kept the ball moving. And somebody told me, I myself was planning to do this podcast for a long time, and I was fighting with myself. All the beliefs that I had built up and attached the emotions with it, saying that, who is going to listen to my podcast? Why would even guests come to my podcast? How am I going to do this? So the 101 questions.
It's always happening.
Yeah. But the moment I started doing the first podcast or decided to do the first one, things started working out, Things just gets aligned to, how you mentioned about the pamphlets that you put in the newspaper. Somebody called up.
Exactly.
That gave you the next step to do.
Let me decipher your question or your statement at that point of time. You were waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
So NLP is about creating your own experience. Basically, we can't cope with all the information flooding on to us. So you go into a room and there are 250 things around it. And you focus on certain areas that seem to be important to you.
Okay.
It might be the people around, it might be the microphone, it might be a camera, whatever it is at that point of time. So we are focusing on certain things, filtering out the rest, deleting or distorting the rest in our mind overall.
Okay.
How we are deleting that stuff, what we are focusing on is oftentimes determined from our own inner beliefs as well, the way of how we grew up, the beliefs we have inside of us. So we are not focusing on all the information. So there are some people who are focusing on taking action instantly, taking action quickly. So they're filtering out, they're seeing opportunity and jump for it. Other people like you, at that point of time as you described it, had to wait. You took the information in, but it was not enough information. You waited. You had to wait for what needs to happen. The doubt comes up then along that line as well of what needs to happen for me in order to make it successful. Can I make it happen? So some people wait a long time before they finally take the action. Other people never do it. And that's when we create regret as well. So it's how we are filtering out your own inner information. I recently spoke to somebody who said the last advertisements in the newspaper that we ran was somehow 2011 or 12. So 14 years ago. Yeah. I recently spoke to somebody. She still has an advertisement of ours pinned to her refrigerator. She called me up and said, I must take NLP. And we talked about it. I asked her basically, how did you find us? Oh, and then she laughed away. I have still your advertisements pinned on my fridge. And I said, you're waiting that long. Same process, basically. And she said, I'm waiting that long. And really? I know I need to take the action. I said, how much longer do you want to wait until you learn NLP? She still hasn't come to the training. It was last year.
Is it because they are still taking in the information and not able to take a decision?
Yes, exactly that. There are people like that. It's not wrong. It's not right. There's no evaluation here. There's no judgment here. NLP doesn't judge.
Yeah.
We are looking at people. We are looking at how do they process the information that is coming in from the outside world. And some people take a lot of action, some people don't take action. I mentioned earlier, I'm listening to external feedback when information from the outside world that determines basically, am I on the right track or not? Are there people know within themselves, for example, I know by myself it will work, even if all evidence speaks against them. So you are also most likely waiting for external kickstarts in order to get it started. And ultimately you realize, I better do it. I better get it done. You talked to your friend, you mentioned to me earlier, and he said, let's just do it. Yeah. And your question was, where do I find my first podcast guest overall? And your friend earlier said, let me be the first one.
Let me be the
and that
first.
was your evidence.
And it was so effortless. It was so simple, so easy.
Yeah, it was your evidence. Just like I needed my first sign out to an NLP practitioner course, you needed to have a first podcast guest. That shows me you need the evidence of one person basically agreeing with you that gave you the feeling, like the certainty, I can make it happen. That's how we operate. And NLP is about that one, understanding who we are as a person, what do we do inside of our mind as we are interacting with the world around us, and really also being able to make the changes inside here to create a different experience, to have more of what we want and less of what we don't want. That's basically what NLP does.
So how do people then differentiate between doing things and doing things right, or because action is all about doing things, right? And if you really want the right results, then there is a school of thought which says that you need to do the right things in the right way. So that needs for you to do market research, get feedback. So if people are just processing the information and then taking decisions and taking action, would we miss out on doing the things correctly also?
You said taking the right action, having the right ideas. How do you know it's right? You will never know exactly. It's the rightness in your head. And the rightness in your head. At that point of time. It's understanding yourself, what needs to happen, so you know within yourself it's the right way to do. There's always a chance to fail, ultimately. I was a hairdresser, my favorite hairdresser, and he was about 29 years old. And he asked me as he cut my hair, Andreas, I'm getting old. Am I too old to open a company? He was 29 years old. At that point of time, I was in my 50s. And I looked at him and I said, as you are, and that's called reframing in NLP, you are old enough to open the company because you're contemplating the idea, and you're young enough to experience opening a company, and if it doesn't work out, you can still go back and try it again and try it again and try it again. And I told him, look at this old guy here. If I don't make it, how many chances would I have to redo it over and over and over again? And that changed his life as well. He's like, I never thought of this before. Yeah, it's true. So we are in our head putting us into boxes, and we can't look beyond the bucket. We can't look at our own limitations. And sometimes, it's my world now. We need somebody to give us that insight, a new perspective, a different way of looking at things, a different belief to help us get started. So it's about having good support. It's about the inner certainty as well. So how do you know you're right? You never quite know. You never quite know. Which is good actually as well. Because if you're always right, everybody else is at fault, right? Because you're always right.
Correct. So you mentioned about reframing. So how would you explain reframing to a person who is a bit skeptical about NLP?
Reframing means anything we have, anything we believe, it's a frame around it, our own perspective. We have our own idea. That's the way of how things do. Reframing simply basically means being able to assume different perspective, looking at the same issue through different lenses. Easy example would be the glass half full or half empty. Some people label it as half empty, other people label it as half full. That is already reframing a little bit. But it's about looking at the same context and what else could that mean? and then looking at it and saying like, it could be like this, or if I'm holding on to that situation, what will be the outcome of that one? Or what else could it mean in that situation? So it's about being able flexibly. NLP is very much about flexibility. We talked about the right way of doing it. NLP is really about understanding what else is possible, creating options within ourselves to look at things from different angles.
Okay.
And reframing basically means looking at the same issue from different angles to gain new insights, to activate also our own inner resources, confidence, ideas, possibilities, not to get stuck in one way, but being able, I can do it like this, I can do it like this, and I have still more possibilities. That's kind of like reframing in a nutshell.
So what I understand is that if you have a problem, for example, if you have an issue, your business not doing well, or you have an issue in your workspace or something like that. So we get stuck looking at it from only one
perspective.
So we are looking at it from being a business owner, or we are looking at it from an employee, and we start blaming our circumstances or the market or whatever it might be. So through reframing, we can actually look at the same problem differently, but the problem still remains the problem, right?
Yeah, but it gives you, let me give you an example. Not too long ago, I mean, it's like really long ago actually, we had COVID, right?
Yeah.
Country closed down. Across the world, countries closed down. Everybody froze. What do I do now? I'm a trainer. I was used to working with people face-to-face, coaching face-to-face. What can we do? If I would have frozen one perspective only, I would be frozen in time and said like, I can't do anything anymore. I closed down my business. That's it, so to speak. I only can work with people. Reframing would mean basically, what else can I do? How can I be flexible enough inside of me to really still run my business while locked away and can't meet people
face to face.
And luckily, we had already, imagine we had COVID without the online availabilities. Luckily we had online. Luckily I was already very, very active in the online space. So it was very easy for me. And luckily we had companies like Zoom or Microsoft Teams ultimately as well to come up with that solution to create for people to reach out and run trainings online. So it's about understanding, here's my restriction. Do I let it tie me down and not moving forward, or what else can I do? What else can I do in that situation to still do something else which helps me moving forward? That's also reframing. And I heard, we talked about 40,000 trainers. I heard many trainers at that point of time, they closed down, went back to corporate world, to closing down their business, had nothing to do anymore. Because their business today, they were busy, but suddenly training calendars got canceled for months and years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that is like, it's an external situation that oftentimes influences, like at that point of time, COVID, or a client is not following through on their commitment maybe, but we were really committing resources to it. What can I do in that situation? Do I let it hold me back, or do I look inside, change my perspective inside here and see what else can I do? How else can I move forward?
So, why do we not do that? Is it because we attach emotions to it, or is it because we start believing that this is the only way forward, and if I can't crack it, then I can't go to the next phase? Or what is the fundamental, or maybe the biggest one that you see in your practice?
Drastically speaking, or it's our own inner beliefs about our own ability. Let me tell you a story of how we are doing things that freezes us. I always, before NLP, I always loved to present, to go into conferences, to be a speaker. And my company, I talked about my earlier boss, they always supported me as well. So I love to speak. Now, many people say like the fear of presentation is the greatest fear people have, worse than death or worse than paying taxes. You most likely heard that before as well, right? So here I'm sitting on a panel and people speak before me. There are more than one speaker, of course. So here I am and I look at the audience and I know my turn is coming soon. I got to stand up, go to the microphone and speak. So what do most people do? Playing out negative self-talk and saying like, okay, the audience is here, they like me, I know my stuff, I'm good, I can do it. Self-talk. But inside of us, we are running the game, a different part of us is taking over. Some people call it the unconscious mind. Takes over, emotions flood off, the mouth is drying up, the vision shrinks. When it's my turn, I vividly remember that my turn, I'm getting up from the chair, walking to the microphone. Every step felt like 1,000 miles to go.
Yeah.
The closer I got to the microphone, the more my mouth dried up, the more my picture shrank, the more I freaked out. I forgot everything that I wanted to say. I forgot everything I told myself before. I wanted to run back to my panel, hold on to the chair. I felt more comfortable there. So what do we do is oftentimes coping strategy. So I had a little bit of a coping strategy, do a stupid joke to lighten myself up inside of me or to entertain the audience for a little while. Did it always work? No, not always. Many times it worked. I had to find a way of how to get from my head in order to link up and sync with the audience to get better. Through NLP, I learned I realized how I play stuff in my mind, in my emotions to influence myself negatively. And so I could make the changes inside my head. And I could have created the own inner fun. And nowadays, when I'm speaking, doesn't matter if I'm speaking online, I do 500 people, or I go to conferences and speak to so and so many hundreds of people as well. I do know what I need to do inside of me to have the greatest fun. So I can go there and I can imagine in my head all the audiences cheers me on. I can imagine there are trumpet blowers left and right to cheer me on. By the time I reach the microphone nowadays, I'm so pumped up, I'm so motivated, I'm so rock and roll that I can really play things on the spot, instantly change something. It was a conference one time where every speaker before me pretty much said the same thing. And I was the third speaker, also realized if I do the same thing as I prepared before, I will be just a repetition of the speakers before. The audience would kill me. So I had to, on the spot, think about what can I do differently to not repeat what the earlier speaker said, which was awesome, but to enlighten the audience, to give them better value or more value to make the changes. By the time, even as my name was called up to do the speech, I wasn't ready.
Okay.
But as I reached the microphone, I knew exactly what to do. And I was engaging the audience, and then we did kind of like personality profiling and entertaining and engaging them and sharing value and working with somebody in a role play quickly. And it was the greatest presentation ever in my world. And they loved it. Their applause was roaring. So it's really about what do we do with the experiences present to us. The experience is just outside. Situations, events, people, they're just outside. But how we interact with them, oftentimes before we go on stage, before we meet a person, before we do something, that's a game we are playing in our head. And that's what we need to change. And that's where NLP comes in. And that once you realize that, it becomes really easy. And it's about then understanding, hey, here's my emotion coming up. Do I like that emotion? I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. But it's about understanding what's going on. I'm also anxious sometimes. COVID made me really anxious. The first week was really relaxing, sleeping in and having fun and just attending webinars. But then I realized there's no more training coming up. What do I do? So I realized, wow, there's a fear coming. There's anxiety coming. What do I need to do now? And I sat down, relaxed, enjoyed the time, calm down myself, the inner state, emotions, and realize what can I do? What else can I do? Reframing. What else can I do? Managing my emotional states, testing it out, running a webinar, talking to friends online overall. What can I do at that point of time? So not letting it stop me, but realizing what are the options available to me to break out of the deadlock. That's a game to play.
Sometimes we make a plan for ourselves. Like, for example, I have a lot of friends of mine who say that, this is my plan. I'm going to work till I'm 45, 50, and then I'm going to retire, then I'm going to the beach and starting a shack, and that's my life going to be like that. I'm
nice.
Not live the rest of my life looking at sunsets and sunrises. But ultimately, they don't practice it. And somehow they create a regret for themselves that,
not doing it or doing it?
Not doing it.
Not doing it.
Not doing it. Even if they have kind of processed the whole idea several times in their minds, but they don't just take the action to do it, or they find reasons why not to do it. So how can reframing make my friends actually take that step to go to the beach and start that shack?
Let me rephrase it a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Many people, as they're going in towards retirement, think about, hey, I'm retiring. Now my life starts. I can be happy. I can travel. Similar to what you described. No matter how old they are, if they're 45, have enough savings, investments overall, or if they're in the 60s, then they finally also retire. And it's oftentimes because their identity is linked to what they do before. So I have the identity of an employee. I have the identity of working.
The CEO of the,
And my beliefs and my values that linger around it. It's important for me to work. That's a value. It's important. It contributes to my family. It creates income. It makes my family safe. Values. And the beliefs around it as well. If I don't work, then I'm the nobody anymore or whatever. So they have this strong values, beliefs, identity statement inside of them. But what they talk about is what they want to do. Once I retire, I can travel around the world. I'm sitting at the beach. I drink my Titanic, have fun doing it, whatever it is, They're just a do level. But they've never made the changes to their identity. Who will I become? So what will I believe? What will be important to me once I retire?
So in a way, are they carrying the burden of their identity every single day, and then the thought of doing nothing or doing something which they love to do is kind of a passion or something that they are not able to do it at this point of time, and that's why they are dreaming of that?
You label it as a burden. I label it as identity. It's just who they are. It's not a burden, but they never really thought through, that's what I want to do. Albert Einstein was saying you can't change something at the same level of occurrence. Well, it's like somebody's procrastinating and you're asking them to be motivated. Or somebody is trying to sell something, become a salesperson, call people, meet people. That's just doing thing. But if I hold in my head the belief I can't do this because I'm not a salesperson or I'm not providing for my family, if I'm not working, the belief is at a much higher level than the behavior. That belief will always override the behavior. That's why many people after New Year's Eve, they're writing down, I'm going to eat lesser, I'm exercising, but 10 days later, a week later, 20 days later, they fall back into their old behavior because the belief, the identity is still there. I am an employee. I am somebody who is not exercising.
So until and unless that belief is changed, the behavior will not change. Is that
exactly? Or even the identity. Really the thought about it. Many people don't think about it. We are running our life by we are not planning out. You don't mention the word planning. We are not planning it out. Who do I want to become in 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Who do I want to be in 5 years from now and 10 years from now? One of my trainers, he is now 70. And he was in a conversation with me and other participants in his training. He said who do I want to be when I'm 80? That's an interesting question. Most people reach 60, 50, 60, 70. They're just running their life without really planning it out by default. But he said, what are the beliefs I need to hold? Imagine that you are 70 now. Society tells you with 70, you're on the declining, you're declining. Your health will be fragile. You're going to be having this and that little health issues and whatever. That's installed from society, from education, from you watching people who are like that. But he actively said, like, what do I want to believe when I'm 80 years old? I want to be healthy. Who do I want to be when I'm 80? Maybe I still want to be a trainer. Maybe I still want to do what I want to do. Who am I as a trainer? What do I need to hold in my mind? What is important to me then in order to still be very active when I'm 80? That's a very different thought, isn't it? Very different thinking about us as a person, no longer living just like that, day in, day out, doing the same thing over and over and over again, but realizing, what else can I do in 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Who will I be? And that will change everything. The moment you change your identity, the moment you're changing your inner beliefs, your values, what is important to you, everything falls into place. That's the world that I'm living in.
That's so you mean to say, I mean, like, what I get from this is that we hardly think about what kind of a person or what kind of a belief that I would like to hold on to when I'm 80. We always we make it very materialistic. We say that, okay, I want this kind of a car, this kind of a house, this kind of a lifestyle, but who am I going to be? When I'm 60, 70, 80, 50, 45, whatever is the age here, no? Next year, next week, we don't do about that. We don't think like that.
There was a cartoon I recently saw about two birds talking to each other. And one bird was saying, like, you only live once. And the other bird was saying, like, no, you only die once. You live every single day. That is basically a different attitude, a different reframe again about the same situation.
Correct.
Right? So it's about how many of us do purposeful changes day in, day out? Most of our life is doing the same thing over and over and over again. Waking up the same time every single day. How we brush our teeth. How we are taking our breakfast. Leaving home the same time of the day, every single day, complaining about the same traffic jams, reaching work, doing the same thing over and over and over again. We are running on patterns. We are running on default, doing the same thing over and over again. But we are not realizing that we are doing it until certain things come up, significant emotional events where we have to make the changes. Instead of thinking like, is that really the way I want to live? But the moment we make the changes, we feel like, I'm threatening my existence. I'm creating uncertainty. Can I really make that happen? Can I become an employer? Can I become an entrepreneur? Can I run a podcast? Then we are creating the changes. And then something inside of us screams out loud, don't do it. You're threatening your livelihood. You're threatening your existence. You're threatening everything you built up so long. Come back because you're safe. Because our mind, our life, we are designed to live safe. It's like safe. If we do something new, it's threatening our existence. A saber-toothed tiger might come up and eat it up on the road because it's still there inside of us that we want to stay safe in a community, in what we are doing, in our work, and changes are threatening. That's why most people don't like the changes.
So do you think failure at times is a good thing to have, where it pushes people to make the change even if they don't want to?
In NLP, we got something which we call convenient assumptions of how we want to look at the world. And one of those convenient assumptions is, again, back to reframing, there's no failure, only feedback. So you actually only when you decide you fail, when you give up on something, then you might have failed. But until then, actually, you're constantly learning. You're capturing data of something that did not work out. Who was it who said, like, was it Edison who said, like, I invented the light bulb 1,000 times, basically, or 10,000 times, and it failed 999 times, or whatever? Did he really fail? No, he found a new way of how not to make things happening. So he practiced over and over again and found new ways of doing things. But there's no failure, only feedback. Imagine a little baby learning how to crawl. I like to say that in my training as well. A baby does not know failure. When it starts to walk, to crawl first, and then takes the first uncertain steps, it gets up and falls down. It gets up and falls down. It gets up and falls down. Until finally it wobbles around and takes the first steps. Imagine a baby or a toddler would know the concept of failure. How many people would you know today who would still crawl on the floor because I never learned how to walk. I'm a real good crawler. I don't want to walk. It's really terrible. I might fall down. Imagine that. What kind of world would we live in?
Wonderful. Yeah.
That's how I think about situations. So there is no failure. You decide if you want to fail. And that is basically, there might be a different options, and they still haven't learned. They still haven't failed. If you say like, okay, I didn't go this way, it doesn't work that way. Maybe I failed here. Let's do something else. You still haven't failed.
Yeah.
You have just embarked on a new way of doing things.
So my question is, say for example, a person who procrastinates. Okay. I do that myself. So that's my question. And I want to break out of it. And I'm, when I listen to a podcast, when I see a YouTube video, when I read a book, I feel that, I'm going to do this. Okay. And the first 1, 2, 3 days happens, I feel that I'm finally able to overcome my behavior, but I slip back into it. How does one go into a stage where I don't slip back? Is it motivation or is it?
If it would only be motivation, you would not have procrastination, right? But most people are very motivated to procrastinate. Are you motivated to procrastinate? So you actually know how to motivate yourself, right? So you want to be motivated without procrastination, but after a couple of days, you fall back to procrastinating. So you're motivated to procrastinate. Okay. In a certain area of your life, you're most likely not procrastinating. You got up in the morning time, for example. It's a question about where else in your life do you procrastinate? Where do you not procrastinate? And what do you do? What are you doing in your mind, in your body, in your brain, the pictures the emotions you run when you procrastinate? In contrast to not procrastinating. What's the difference that makes a difference? And there are areas of your life, I promise you, are not procrastinating at all.
Yeah, true.
You just run it. There's a different strategy you're running in your head. What is it then about podcasting, for example, that you would need to do in your head, in your body, in your emotional state, in your strategies of doing it, that would allow you to constantly do really awesome podcasts, which you do already anyway. So you have started to overcome the procrastination. So there is something you have changed, something happened, and you mentioned it earlier, something happened that helped you to get out of that procrastinating state.
Okay.
And that is something when you identify that.
So you mean to say the same person at a different scenario or situation behaves differently. And somebody is procrastinating, but give him something else to do and he does not do that.
Exactly.
So we can't be labeled as procrastinators.
No, actually not. If I were to give you $1 million
in that situation,
if I give you $1 million every time to do a podcast, you would do it instantly, most likely. Because maybe $1 million is important.
I would do it without the $1 million as well.
Even that one, okay. So it's really about also understanding of how what you plan to do fits with your current values and belief system and your identity. Because you started up your podcast right now. That it means basically you're starting to shape a new identity as a podcaster. And you're very enthusiastic about it. You thought about it. You want to do it, however long it took you. But you thought about it, you did it, and you most likely got excited about it. And then you needed to have the mosaic stone, the little building block that was missing, like the little bit of certainty, another program running inside of you that helped you to understand, I can make it happen. That was your first podcast guest.
So we don't look at, it's a great example, but normally in life, we don't get a chance to look back all at our, like very small things that we end up doing, like doom scrolling, for example, spending hours, and then we look at the time and
procrastinated around. Many people are not procrastinating on that one, isn't it?
Yeah,
they just do.
They just do it, and then so do you think that it's the awareness of the situation and the belief that we have time, so let's waste it here, and I'm okay doing that? So is that something that we need to control?
You mentioned the word motivation earlier. How do I move from procrastination to motivation, right? For example, let me give you another example before I answer your question. Somebody who's got a phobia of a cockroach or a phobia of anything.
Fear, basically.
A strong fear inside of them. They are highly motivated to get away from that problem they are facing, be it a cockroach or be it a snake or be it something else. They don't want to get in touch with that. So basically, that's a motivation to move them away. We label it as negative, but they want to move away from that thing that freezes them at that point of time in fear. It's a motivation. So they have some motivation. So it's really somebody is procrastinating. They're running in that one area. They're running a strategy inside of them of procrastinating. Where else in their life do they not procrastinate? Where else in their life are they highly motivated? What do they do different? And that's what we need to identify. Because I promise you, in many areas of their life, they might not procrastinate. They might be very motivated in order to get it done.
Yeah.
And that's when once you identify that, it helps people to gain the insight and to make the changes already within themselves to make it happen, to no longer be procrastinating. It's not bad to procrastinate. It's a good strategy to have. Because some people might procrastinate because they might not be healthy. They might have something going on. They need to relax for a while, burnout, for example. They need to procrastinate in order to avoid getting unhealthy. So it's not bad. We are labeling it as negative.
Okay.
But it's about understanding what needs to happen within yourself to get towards a motivation state. And what is important to you? What is your identity around it? What are the changes you would embark on? All these kind of little building blocks you need to decipher, decode, understand to help that person get out of procrastination.
A lot of time we don't have an external person to give us that feedback, and we are living with that. So, how important do you think is coaching and training in that sense?
Coaching and training is always important, but I would not even call it only coaching and training. Oftentimes, it's also support. What is your support system around you in support? If you are living in an environment, I'll go to an environmental level, if you have great dreams, big dreams of wanting to achieve something, but people around you tell you all the time, from childhood maybe onwards, but maybe even in a company or in a relationship you're in, you are not good enough, you can't make it happen, you're too old, you're too young, don't have the experience, you have too much experience, you have achieved something, don't do it. If you hear it constantly over and over and over and over again, you start to build a wall and you start to crack basically. Start believing other people. So beliefs come not only from you, can also come from external environments. And those beliefs hold you back. So sometimes we got to say goodbye to old systems and move on. But if you're in a system, in a support group, basically speaking, that supports us a lot and saying, they see the potential, they see the diamond inside of us. When we believe like, no, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, never done it. And there's somebody who says like, you can make it happen. You can call it mentor, you can call it coach, you can call it friend or partner. And they realize, or maybe even parent, they realize how good you actually can become. They see the potential inside of you and help you to identify ways to break through their own limitations. That is useful. Because really identifying what system you're hanging in. Ultimately, sometimes it's good to say goodbye to some of the systems and move on. Sometimes it's the system that brings you to the greatest heights you need to have.
So, in your career, was there a point in time where you felt that you are completely lost, or you're unsure of what's going to happen next? I'm like not when you initially started, but during the journey, the journey, did you have this kind of a feeling? Maybe during COVID or after COVID, did you fear that you're not really sure what's the next step going to be?
That was COVID, honestly. As I mentioned earlier, COVID was the time you woke up, the country closed down, training got canceled, coaching got canceled. What to do next? How can we manage it? Again, everybody else, most likely in the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, enjoyed the time. Yay, be off, can sleep in, spend time with the family, play with the children, have a good time, whatever. But then realizing in me as a trainer, there's no income coming in. There's no project coming in. What else can I do? And that, again, it was really like going back to basics and saying like, where did I overcome challenges before? It's also very good oftentimes to go back in time ourselves. We forget how many challenges we overcame already in our life and realize I've done this, I've done that, I've gone through this hardship and that hardship. What could I have learned from that point of time? For me, it was confidence in certain situations that I can capture and believing in myself, I can get through COVID. And then finding the tools to make it happen. And then having a support system where people said, like, let's do something, and me then contributing. And for example, I was in an entrepreneurial group and everybody was lost there. And I had then the chance to say like, hey, let's do something together. And we did in the beginning of COVID, twice for 1 week entrepreneurial shows from morning, I think 9 o'clock we started until the evening time. Every hour, a different entrepreneur speaking about helping people to overcome the challenges.
So using it as a feedback or
basically,
rebuilding. How important is storytelling in NLP? You hear about storytelling, and how is it helping people to change their belief system?
Humans always loved stories. Stories were the first metaphor how we survived as a human species a long time back when we couldn't write down. I had to tell you stories about the moon and the stars and the earth and whatever that you survived and millions of years ago or thousands of years ago. So storytelling is always something that was impacting humans. We are living on storytelling. Doesn't matter who tells us stories overall, your parents, teacher, you yourself watching TV. Stories, oftentimes in hypnosis, for example, we're using stories to help a person also accessing resources. Stories are helping people to overcome the inner skeptic. So when I'm going to my clients and let me tell you a story, people say like, it's just a story. Nothing is happening. And then so the inner guard goes down and we are no longer on the guard and pushing back the messages. It's just a story. And story helps us to activate our unconscious mind, the pictures in our mind. We are living in a story. If the story being told is really vivid, really engaging, really wonderful, triggers our own thoughts, triggers our own feelings. And then we are getting entranced. There's no the word, entranced in the story, living in the story. Now, if the story contains positive messages, we might maybe even make the changes within inside of us. Like when I were to tell you a story about people procrastinating without mentioning the word procrastinating, about a tribe living somewhere who couldn't get things done, but then the dangers came up and they had to move and whatever, I would just create a story on the roll and you would listen to the story. Suddenly you realize maybe your own inner procrastination that you felt before is melting away because your mind is starting to activate that resources inside of you. Hey, it's good to stay motivated. If that could answer your question. Well, storytelling is very important. There's even a whole section in NLP, in the practitioner training, on how to create enticing stories.
Can we tell stories to ourselves? Like
we always tell stories.
Okay.
Anything, all of us have self-talk. When I mentioned to you earlier going on the stage to speak, and I told in my head, like, I can't make it happen. I don't know anymore. I'm freezing, what's going on. And telling the audience is not, they're going to listen to me and still froze. It's because we're telling us stories in our head of what does not work. Okay. How many times do people say, like, I can't do this because of this or that or this or that, giving us a lot of examples. All of those are stories we are telling ourselves. Change the story in your head. Change your self-talk in your head to ask yourself, is that what I'm telling me right now of not working, of not making it work out? Is that really the truth? Who told me that story? Who told me that story that I can't be a trainer? Who told me that story I can't be an entrepreneur? Once I realized that, I said, wow, it's a story I told myself. I reframed it and I told me a different story. What would happen if I make it happen? What would happen if people like to learn NLP from me? What would happen if I get the participants inside my training room and make the changes with them to help them create their dreams, make their dreams come true, create lasting change? So we always tell ourselves stories, but how much of the story we tell ourselves is actually true? Tell yourself a different story, the outcome might be very different ultimately.
Different, yeah. Tell yourself the right stories and maybe change your life.
Not just maybe, but possibly making it happen.
Possibly change your lives. Yep. That was a great discussion.
Thank you so very much, Arunava, for having us here, for having me here.
Thank you very much.
I totally enjoyed it. Thank you very much for viewing as well.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Let's look meaningful into the camera for a moment longer.